It
Do
was
you name your
close.
turkey?
No, do you?
Yes.
What's yours?
I haven't decided yet. I don't know if I want it to be a boy or a girl.
That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to the Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean,
And I'm Joe Howie.
and it's finally time, your first pregame show. Providence starts off the season against Fairfield on Wednesday, 2 p.m. tip. Providence finished last season 19-12. Meanwhile, the Fairfield Stags were 12-20. Last season, Providence favored to win this game by 22 points. We're going to start you off with our first segment, our starting five. We're going to run through 5 things that we think you should know before this game. So the first one, the Friars have posted a 33-5 record against Fairfield all time, including 9-0 at Alumni Hall, where this game will be played. The last time these two teams met, the Friars won 78-69 in November of 2013, back at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. So the Friars have a pretty strong history against the Stags.
Yeah, Matt, I think the interesting factor here is that Ed Cooley used to be the head coach at Fairfield, so I think it's always a little bit of a homecoming for him to play Fairfield, regardless of where the game is. Last season, just taking a look back at PC's previous season openers, they beat Sacred Heart 106-60 at the Dunkin' Donuts Center before an electric opening night crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And the year before that, they actually played in Alumni Hall. They beat Houston Baptist 84-55 in the 17-18 season. Again, in front of another electric crowd because Alumni Hall is a little bit smaller than the Dunk, so
Yeah.
the noise travels in there.
Yeah, they had to play that game at Alumni Hall, much to the chagrin of many of the fans that usually buy tickets because it was students only for that game, because of Comic-Con at the Dunkin' Donuts Center that weekend. So you had a scheduling conflict there. We're going to run you down to our second point in the starting five, the size matchup between both of these teams. They're basically equal when you look at the heights up and down the starting lineups, and that's surely going to be something, a matchup to watch for the Friars.
Yeah, more specifically, Providence and Fairfield's point guard and center, respectively, are each the same height, and they're 2 through 4. The Fairfield 2 through 4 are an inch shorter than Providence respective 2 through 4. So it's going to be a very similar matchup in terms of size, height, and length. So it's not something that the Friars are not used to seeing. I mean, they've been practicing against each other. They can't really have any exhibition games or scrimmages. So if anything, the COVID has actually prepped them for game one because they've been playing against the same size that they're going to see in game one.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. There's no obvious matchup here for Fairfield. It's going to be just straight up talent against talent from one team to the other. No massive size differential. Move down to point number 3 in the starting five. That's transfers. We all know Jared Bynum going to be projected to start at the one for the Friars. The transfer in from St. Joe's, Noah Horkler probably starting at the 4, the transfer from North Florida. If you look at this Fairfield lineup, they're in the same boat the Friars are in. They've got Caleb Green projected to be the point guard. He transferred in from Holy Cross and had to sit last year. And add this one to the all-name team, Chef Gala Kulandi. Chef Gala Kulandi. And trust me, it's not spelled like that. I'm sure you'll see that name on the graphics come Wednesday afternoon. He transferred in from St. Bonaventure. He'll play the 4. He's 6'7". So both of these teams seeing how these adjustments work in the time of COVID, bringing transfers in.
Point 1, Chef Galakulandi immediately first team all non-Big East names roster. Immediate. He's the king of that roster as of right now. And second point, yeah, Matt, I think this point goes for both Providence and Fairfield. It's going to be interesting to see how these transfers adapt to each team's respective style of play. I mean, with COVID, the Providence transfers and the Fairfield transfers haven't had a chance to play as Providence and as Fairfield against another opponent. I mean, they sat out last year, and COVID prevented them from having any scrimmages, any exhibition games, except for among themselves. So it's going to be interesting. Both teams, both set of transfers are going to go through a learning curve this first game.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be something to watch out for, those adjustments. Let's move down, starting at number 4 in our starting 5. This Fairfield Stags offense, simply put, they're terrible. They were 349th in the country in points per game last year, averaged under 60, and they lost their best scorer, Talifero, who averaged 11 points per game and has since graduated. So for a team that didn't score well coming into a situation like this, the Friars defense should be in a good spot to make some plays.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at this Fairfield roster, they do return Jesus Cruz and Taj Bennings, who are arguably the best players to play in the red and white last season. But then again, when you lose your best scorer, it's always going to be a learning curve with these guys that need to fill bigger shoes. Another note, Jay Young, the Fairfield head coach, is only in his second season at the helm of the Stags, and he boasts a 12-20 record.
So there's we talk about adjustments, a new coach there. That'll affect the scouting report for the Friars, trying to figure out what they're doing. But certainly this is not an offense that will intimidate Ed Cooley and Jeff Battle and this coaching staff as they prepare for the game on Wednesday. And finally, coming in at number 5 to round out the starting 5, the obvious, but we're going to talk about it anyway. This game is in Alumni Hall in front of no fans. And Joe, as you've been a part of for many years, a leading part of for many years, the crowd is a big part of why Providence won so many home games, and this is a team that feeds off that energy.
Yeah, Matt, as the former president of Friar Fanatics, the student section club that was responsible for game themes and marketing, this is going to hurt the Friars. I mean, if anyone was at that Marquette game, that Seton Hall game, that Xavier game, that DePaul game, the crowd was electric, and Ed Cooley on countless occasions has been quoted as saying, "Our crowd won us this game. They gave us the momentum." It goes on and on and on. He often credits the crowd for the momentum, the energy that sparks the runs that Providence goes on. It's going to be, I think I talked a lot about learning curves. This is going to be the biggest learning curve for this Friars team, is playing without fans, because if anyone has been fortunate enough to be at the Dunkin' Donuts Center during a really big game, you know that you can't think in that building. It is so loud. The roof gets blown off anytime something big happens. And to have no fans at all this season in Alumni Hall, which retains more sound than the Dunk, that's gonna hurt them a little bit, because right now the only momentum they have to really go off of is the squeaking of sneakers and the bounce of a basketball. So let's hope that it doesn't affect them too much.
This shifts that burden onto the players, onto the leaders to bring that energy, bring that momentum themselves. So that'll fall on the shoulders of a guy like David Duke or Nate Watson down low. Got to find a way to manufacture it. Now we'll move to our next segment. We'll familiarize you guys with the format of the show. We're going off the bench. We're going to each give you our one little bullet point, one little fact that didn't make the starting 5 that was important to us. Joe, you want to start with yours?
Yes, so my off the bench for this podcast is going to be the battle in the paint. So we mentioned that the size matchup between these two teams is very similar in respect to each player's height. But in the paint, Nate Watson comes in at 6'10". Chris, I believe his last name is Mado, comes in at also 6'10". The difference is Chris Mado is listed at, we'll just put it this way, very skinny. Nate Watson is not very skinny. He comes in at a thick 260 pounds, and for anyone who follows him on TikTok, you'll notice that he is absolutely ripped. He came in here, I mean, he wasn't fat or chubby, but he was like a thicker, like a bodybuilding type. He is shredded. I mean, the abs on that guy for a center, forget it. Nate Watson should feast in the paint. And I mean, I get it. Length and height always help, But if you're the same height and you're the same length, I think weight and strength wins 9 times out of 10. So Nate Watson should have a day on Wednesday in the paint. Matt, would you like to give your off the bench point?
Yeah, just going off yours real quick. Based on the numbers, Nate Watson has a 60-pound advantage over Mido for Fairfield. So you're absolutely right. Going to be a huge opportunity for Watson to win down low. For me, coming off the bench, it's got to be about the expectations that Ed Cooley has for this team. He was talking in the weekly radio show that he does about how they want to start off this season, especially given limited practices and no exhibitions. And he said he expects perfection right from the get-go. They want to pick up from where they left off last year with that 93-55 win over DePaul, winning your last 6 games, beating ranked teams. They know that there's no room to mess around, and they're coming out with the highest of expectations for themselves to beat Fairfield and start this season the way that they want to.
I absolutely love that off the bench point, Matt. I think this poses a huge difference from Cooley's mentality in seasons prior. You often hear him say something along the lines of, I'm looking to see what our team's identity is going to be this year. Nope. He said, our last game we won by 30. That's the expectation. I love that. That is, to quote Bill Raftery, that's onions. That's just, you're putting it all out there. You're like, you know what? Last game we played, we beat DePaul at home by 30. That's what we're bringing into this season. I love it.
And there's no doubt Cooley is a leader of men. This team will follow him. So if he's setting those expectations, they will meet them, or there's going to be changes to who's on the floor. And as a fan, I certainly hope that they do meet them. We'll shift down. Getting late in the show here. I think we both have high expectations personally for this team and for this game. Joe, who is the X factor for the Friars?
For me, for this podcast, my X factor is Nate Watson. Anyone that followed the Friars closely last season knows that he was sidelined for a handful of games because of a knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. He never really got back into his groove that we saw his sophomore year, where he was putting up double digits night in and night out. And, part of that is because Khalif Young really came on towards the end of the season. But really, Nate Watson, this is going to be a welcome home game for him. He's had plenty of time to recover, a full off season to get that knee healthy, to get strong. And as I said, his body looks freaking awesome. He's shredded. He's got a favorable matchup this game. This should be a strong welcome home party game for Nate Watson. He is my X factor.
He should certainly be a threat in this one. My X factor, you went big. I'm going small. Going to the top of the lineup in Jared Bynum, his first game for the Friars. Talk about the expectations game. The Friars have been hyping up Jared Bynum for a long time, ever since they got him from St. Joe's. Listen to John Fanta or anybody else in the Big East media talk about him, and you can hear how much the Providence staff loves his game. And he's filling in for some pretty big shoes. The last guy to play that role was LaJuan Pipkins, became a fan favorite at the end of last season. Bynum's going to have a lot of pressure on him. I think Fairfield's a good matchup for him. Bynum's weakest area, just given his size, is probably on defense. And given how putrid Fairfield's offense has been at shooting the basketball, I don't think he's going to have to worry a lot there. They should have opportunities in transition where he is at his best as a passer. And I think if he is as advertised, you're looking at a 20, 30, possibly even a 40-point victory for the Friars.
Yeah, Matt, Jared Bynum has big shoes to fill in that of LaJuan Pipkins, but also going back another year, Cartwright. He's a little different from Pipkins in the way that he plays. Pipkins more of a scoring combo. Bynum is more of a true table-setting point, similar to Cartwright. I think, if he can bring scoring to the table and he can pass the ball, he is going to be very successful in the black and white.
I'm definitely excited to see him. Now we'll get to the closing remarks here. First, we're going to give our starting lineups, our predicted starting lineups for who's going to play, and we'll give you our score predictions to cap things off. I'll start my starting lineup. We're just going bread and butter here, what everybody's been saying all off season. Jared Bynum's going to run the point. You're going to have David Duke at the 2, AJ Reeves at the 3, Horkler, the transfer, Cooley likes the veterans, so we're going to go with Horkler over Gant here, and Nate Watson anchoring down low.
Okay, so for my starting lineup, I'm going to shake up what the predictions say a little bit. I agree with 4 out of the 5. I think Bynum and Duke will be in the backcourt at the 1 and 2. You've got Reeves on the wing at the 3, and Watson anchoring the paint at the 5. However, I don't think that Noah Horkler gets the start at the 4. I think Ed Cooley's going to put his faith in Greg Gant. And the reason for this, I think if you look at any of the preseason material that the Providence Twitter page has put out or Providence social media, it's a lot of Bynum, Duke, Reeves, Gant, Watson, Bynum, Duke, Reeves, Gant, Watson. On Ed Cooley's radio show tonight, he talked about Greg Gant extensively. He did not talk about Noah Horkler. I think because of Gant's experience with the team and because of his defensive agility, he will get the start at the 4. Don't get me wrong, Horkler is going to get some solid minutes off the bench, but I think Greg Gant gets the start at the 4. And I'll give you my 6 and my 7 too. 6-man off the bench, Noah Horkler. He's going to come in. He's going to play that 4-5 stretch spot when Watson or Gant needs a breather. And then you got Jimmy Nichols coming in too. He's going to be a strong 7-man. He's had some minutes on this team. Very lanky, very long. This is going to be a big season for him. My projected score is 83-58. I think the Friars are going to take this one and go running, but I also think that because it's the first game, Fairfield is going to be a little excited too. Their offense will probably be a little more efficient than expected, so I expect them 58 points.
I think I think you have an interesting point there. I'm going to go close in my prediction. I'm taking the Friars 88-54. This should be in that neighborhood. Friars should take this one handily. So this is our first game preview, and we're both very excited for this one. You can catch us here after the game. We'll be doing post-game. We'll get that up shortly thereafter. But the Friars will be tipping off at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. You can watch that game, I believe, on Fox Sports. Thank you for listening to our pregame, and we will talk to you after the game. For Joe Howie, I'm Matt St. Jean. Thank you for listening.